Hello and welcome to a very special edition of Talk Therapy brought to you by Driveway Devi. I'm Karthik on behalf of Driveway Devi. I think all of us individually at some point in our lives have experienced feelings where we really, really dislike ourselves, loathe ourselves even, and at other points we feel completely in love and utterly obsessed with ourselves. And while these two represent polar ends of a spectrum, I think we've all gone through it. Having said that, there is this term, this phrase, and this concept which has become more and more relevant, more and more important, which is self love. But I will definitely add that from a layperson's perspective, there is also a lot of misunderstanding that surrounds self love and what precisely it means, why it should be pursued, and what benefits it can have. And to shed light on this critical facet of mental wellness and well being, we are joined by the very, very well informed and erudite Jenil. We are very privileged and lucky that somebody of her caliber has agreed to be in conversation with us. And I would like to therefore thank her and welcome her onto the program.
Hello. Thank you so much for such a wonderful introduction.
Not at all. In fact, I usually don't like to talk about my guests' work because I would much rather that they tell us a little bit about it themselves because that's always much better. So, before we get into self love, which is really the main theme of our discussion, we would love for you to tell us a little bit about your work and your therapeutic practice.
So, I have been working as a counseling psychologist for over 14 years now, and I help people navigate their life challenges. So, it can be something as you know, people usually say, I get panic attacks, anxiety attacks, depression, suicidal ideations, self esteem issues. So, my work basically entails helping a layman lead a better quality of life. And at the end of at the bottom rung, what is lacking over here is basically a lack of understanding towards one's own self, a lack of self love, if I have to put it, and it is bringing all this forward to them, helping them understand themselves better, helping them accept themselves, and helping them uh, restart their journey and lead a better quality of life at the end of the day.
Wonderful. Now, if I can explain to you, and I'm sorry if at several points I will sound repetitive, but I would love for you, and I think it'll be very, very valuable. Can you explain to us, define to us, in the simplest terms possible, self love क्या होता है?
हम्म। तो आप मुझे बताइए आपके हिसाब से जब हम सेल्फ लव की बात करते हैं what exactly is self love what does it mean loving our own selves how would you say it
Yeah, I would say loving your own self, but that is just saying the same thing in slightly different words. I would add to that there are certain critical features that define or make that or enable that self love, which is I think certain things that get formed in a human being through certain specific uh, ideals that that person consciously or unconsciously seeks, which would, in my limited understanding, include things such as validation, and it would include things such as, like you very correctly pointed out, an acceptance that is derived from that validation and which ultimately makes for a robust and healthy self concept.
Hmm, hmm. Absolutely. So basically, self love is a genuine understanding, awareness, acknowledgement of who I am. Okay. The who. We usually want to love things which are beautiful, not just in the physical sense, but something which is accepted by and large by everyone. Right? So self love is something that entails to who am I? What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? A thorough, a detailed understanding of this and accepting yourself just the way you are. Okay. At level two, we check whether I want to do something about it or no. Because there are a lot of times when we're not able to do anything about the whole thing. Like, for example, a person who's born with a physical defect, if he or she is unable to accept his defect, it's going to cause a lot of ruckus. And the fight is not with the world, it is in our head with ourselves. So, when we are talking about self love, it is about the quality of conversation that we are having in our head with ourselves. So, it is the self talk that we are addressing over here. We are all constantly chattering in our heads, whether we accept it or no. What is this quality of chatter that you are having? Is it healthy? Is it unhealthy? Is it helping you grow or are you looking down upon yourself? Right? So that is self love. A lot of times when teenagers come to me, and in my early practice, when I try to explain them the concept of self love, it was very, very challenging because they thought if they started loving themselves, other people are not going to love them or they are not going to find a partner, a boyfriend or a girlfriend that is very cool for them to have at that age. And that's where the whole problem starts, that we think that if I start looking at myself, I'm going to come across as very arrogant, as very, you
Selfish.
know, yes, selfish or narcissistic. But no, that's not self love. That is arrogance. That's pride. That's pride in a negative way.
Hmm.
When we are talking about self love, it is highly healthy in nature. It is knowing who you are, knowing what are your flaws, what are your imperfections, and what is the level of your strength, your talents, your caliber, your abilities. So, to say that even if someone appreciates me, I don't get carried away. And if someone puts me down, it doesn't bother me a lot because I know it and I have accepted that about myself. So, I'm okay about the fact that, okay, this is the case with me. Yes, it will pinch me, it will hurt me in the moment, but I will not keep playing that record in my head constantly. Make sense?
Absolutely, absolutely makes sense. Now, before we examine why it is important to undertake a certain amount of work in terms of self love, uh,
Mm-hmm.
which now, having sort of understood it, also, it becomes a little more obvious, but we'll discuss it. Before that, I want to ask you couple of things. One thought that's coming to my mind is it fair to say that a deficit or a lack of understanding of the self is mostly or largely derived from not receiving that validation, etc., particularly in formative childhood, or there are multiple reasons?
Yes, there are multiple reasons, but this, what you have pointed out very rightly, is one of the major factors. In fact, when I do parental counseling, I tell all the parents that whatever you're telling your child is going to turn into their inner voice. That is how they are going to talk to themselves. So please be very mindful of the kind of language, the choice of words, the the quality. Even if your intention is very good to bring out the best in your child, but your approach may not be very, very healthy, and it's going to take away his or her peace in the process, costing a lot in the long run. No, so definitely it is lack of the appropriate or the healthy uh, content, or the insights that our parents have brought into our heads, which kind of um, mingles, and because constant self doubt, okay, or overconfidence
Hmm.
are is when the balance of self love is hindered.
Hmm. Hmm.
So sometimes when people are too much full of themselves, a lot of vanity. So we say there's a lot of excess of self-love, but that is actually, uh, it's again not healthy.
Hmm. Hmm.
So either ways, a formative years definitely has a great, great, great role to play in terms of the quality of conversations that we are having with ourselves, hence determining the love quotient.
The other thing that I wanted to check with you, and I think as a mental health professional, perhaps you'll agree. If not, please do correct me. Oftentimes, when individuals are undergoing a certain condition or distress, there is a lack of objectivity, and one may be blissfully unaware of one's own conditions. Now,
Mm-hmm.
if there is a deficit of self-love, what are some ways in which that may manifest, and can that person even be able to determine कि हाँ मेरे को ये हो रहा है and I must take corrective action?
Um, so let us look at it this way that when I'm lacking in self-love, it's going to hinder every aspect of my life because what is the direct impact when I don't understand myself, when I'm not aware of myself? I'm going to either try to prove myself, I'm going to be constantly restless, I'm going to be constantly in a state of overdoing or underdoing. All this is going to impact my relationships across, whether it is on my personal front or on my professional front. It is going to have an impact on my career, on my finances. Every aspect of my life is going to get hampered in the process.
Hmm.
Is it? So, at the crux of it all, if we have to see the larger picture, ultimately, self love is something that every individual needs to learn, and learn in a healthy way in order to heal themselves, in order to understand themselves better, in order for them to be more functional in every aspect of their life.
Hmm.
It's going to bring them a lot of clarity. There is going to be confidence without any strings attached to it. So let's say tomorrow, if a person is having some kind of work related issues, they will accept that yes, in terms of work, I'm facing XYZ problem, but they are not going to hammer themselves. I am unlucky, I am jinxed, I am this, I am that. The objectivity that we are talking about will be maintained if the self love quotient is healthy.
Hmm. Hmm. Makes
Okay,
sense.
they will be able to understand that my earning capacity or my work does not determine my existence on this planet. I deserve to be here irrespective of anything because I'm born over here, I'm a living being, I ought to live a healthy life. That is an added advantage. But even if I don't have that, I have every right to live and survive on this planet. Unfortunately, we have come to that space where we are attaching all our achievements, all our successes to our existence. So, again, showing that I lack understanding of myself, of my existence, and any kind of compassion towards myself. In fact, I always tell people that when you're going through a rough patch in your life, the world is being really nasty to you because they don't know who you are. But why are you doing the same thing to your own self?
Hmm.
How different a role are you playing than the world?
Absolutely.
In your head, you're constantly battling everything, right? You're looking
Hmm.
out for validation, you're getting offended with whatever the world is telling you.
Hmm.
And why are you doing that? Why are you giving them the power? Take back your power. And that's where self love comes into place.
That makes absolute and complete sense, and I take that point very, very seriously. But whether or not a lack of self love is even categorized as a condition, or for that matter, um, because of that root cause, certain other conditions may or may not develop, anxiety, stress, etc. मेरा सवाल फिर भी घूम फिर के वहीं आता है that as is the case with the more well known and I don't like using this expression, but more sort of in a sense serious mental health conditions where the individuals who are experiencing that are totally unaware, there can be close friends or family or caregivers who undertake a certain kind of intervention and get that person help. Here, if a person is just going on, and sometimes it's not even about that, life takes over, we're all in incredibly busy and preoccupied lives. What if there is a person who's just blindly going forward and is to others very very obviously, this is what the problem is, this swinging between a terrible lack of confidence to overcompensating. Can anything be done by anybody else?
Very interesting question. So this is our journey, right? It is not a destination. So I cannot say my self love quotient is high, so I'm done and dusted, and I don't have
Hmm.
to do any self work,
True.
right? First and foremost, it is my journey. So it is each individual's journey to say, okay, yes, the support system definitely matters, the environment definitely matters. So to say the family and friends that you're talking about, they do have a role to play, but provided you are doing the work on yourself. Okay, they doing the work and you getting the benefits, that's not possible. It is very, very essential that the individual who is facing that whatever problem, whether it is a mental health problem or whether it is a life crisis, they have to do the hard work. If they are not ready to put in that efforts, no amount of intervention from a profession or from the family or from their support system is going to make a vast difference. It can make a little minute difference here and there, but that's going to be very, very temporary and superficial in nature because ultimately it's about the person, his understanding, his life, his journey, right? As a professional, as a family, we can show you the path. We can walk by you.
Yeah.
But it is not possible that we do your work and you derive the benefits of the same,
Of course.
right? So I hope I've answered your question.
Bilkul, bilkul. Now let's talk a little bit as we move towards the latter part. We always like to, discuss solutions or leave our audience with certain takeaways and practical steps. If one does have that kind of self-awareness and is invested enough to make the effort of undertaking this sort of journey, again from a lay perspective, and granted my perception is a little cynical, I've noticed that uh, a fair few people who say, I have now decided कि मैं काम से break लूंगा and I will focus on myself and I will reacquaint myself within myself, etc., etc., that those endeavors can have a tendency of slipping into incorrect priorities, in the sense that, just as an example, let's say somebody goes on a retreat. Now the retreat and the maza masti there, etc., etc., will become the focus and not the work that is to be done during or as a result of that travel or break or whatever. So my
Mhm.
point of sharing this context is that what can and what should this kind of a process of inward journey, what does it ought to look like, and is it advisable that it be done under the guidance, mentorship of a mental health professional, or even for that matter a life coach, or what?
All right. So I always tell this to whoever seeks my services that when we are sitting, even in a session, a retreat is again for let's say 2 days, 3 days, 5 days, depending on the number of days that it is. Even in a session that is for an hour, hour and a half, it's a very controlled setting. Okay, there are no environmental disturbances per se, which is going to interfere with the therapy or the strategies that we are discussing and trying to implement. and incorporate.
Mm.
The problem comes in when we go and do a reality testing. Okay, it is very different in a therapy session versus a reality check in the life where the environmental factors are not under our control. Where
Just
most
so that I and others understand what you're saying, if you can perhaps contextualize it or give an example, because मुझे थोड़ा सा I'm unclear कि ये therapeutic environment I understand, but what exactly do you mean when you say out in reality? How would one test it?
For example, if someone comes to me, let's say someone is having panic attacks, and I give them three exercises to do as a part of a ritual, as a part of their daily, like a medication. So I tell them there is a choice you have. There are some people who have crossed the line and they have to go for medication,
Right,
and
right.
that is step one. But there are some who are just at the onset of it, and things can be, they can be
Managed with, yeah.
yeah, managed just with some kind of therapy. So I have given them three tools or three exercises to do that they have to follow in their day-to-day life.
Hmm, hmm,
So let's say I give them two options for that, or I give them two versions to do it. One is that as a let me state an example. Like I'm asking you to do a breathing exercise
hmm.
two times in a day, morning and evening, once you wake up and before you hit the bed. Okay, this you have to do it as if you're taking a medication. Like the doctor says, these two medications have to be
Correct,
taken
correct.
morning, night.
Right, right.
Similarly, you do this. And in the middle, in the day, if you have anything that is kind of interfering, that is causing you any kind of anxiety, it's causing you any kind of, it's taking away your peace of mind, then immediately resort to this.
Hmm.
Right? So, but at that point of time, if the environment is not very conducive, that means if they're living in a toxic environment or they're having some kind of toxicity, either at the workplace or back home, chances are they will not be able to implement when
Ah,
we are incorporating, when we are trying to change our routine or bring in something new. Uh, we have to get accustomed to.
hmm.
Okay, so there is like this ritual of 21 days, 42 days,
Correct,
60
correct.
days you have to follow if you have to make it a part and parcel of your life. Like it has to
Right.
be
A
something like
permanent
brushing our
status
teeth.
quo ban jaye. Haan.
Huh? Okay, even if my eyes are closed, my brush will go in the mouth and not
Correct,
anywhere
correct.
else on the face.
Hmm.
So it's like that. So, but to get into that habit, you will have to spend minimum 21 days so that you are kind of adjusted to it. Now, when I have someone who's coming to me for therapy is coming because they are facing some major crisis and chances are there is some environmental disturbance. So at that point of time, the 21 days journey has not completed. The
Hmm.
body, the mind has not got accustomed to it.
Hmm.
And suddenly for them to apply that
Ah.
while they are going through the disturbance is not going to yield the result which it would have otherwise yielded in if they had completed the 21 days journey.
Understood.
Making sense?
Understood. Absolutely.
Doing self work is not easy. You have to overcome these, like, so to overcome these challenges, you have to do a lot of back and forth. There are chances that you will take up two steps and you will fall down 20. And you again have to restart your journey from somewhere which was not even your initial point. So it's going to take a lot of your conviction, a lot of your energy, a lot of inner drive to take that inward journey. But trust me, it's worth it.
And the second part of that question was that should this journey be embarked upon under the guidance of a professional?
Absolutely. We all need someone to coach us, to mentor us, to guide us, because that makes our life easy. It's not everyone has the grit to do the back and forth because it's not easy. And those are the people who become mentors and coaches and experts at the end of the day, right? But
Would it be fair to draw the analogy of a physical personal trainer who would then be able to give you a combination of the correct tools and techniques as well as objectivity and motivation?
absolutely. And in fact, again, it's very easy for me to teach you 10 different strategies, but the application is where the problem happens. And the application in the real world is more challenging.
Hmm.
So, when the client comes back and says that we discussed this yesterday, or this is what I learned. But unfortunately, this went wrong. However, I could apply A and B. C was a challenge. So I need to restart. And can you help me do that? Because they have seen success in A and B. So they also want to incorporate C. But how to do? We have to again break that up into smaller chunks for them, depending on their problem. So again, this is very personalized. One size cannot fit everyone.
Of course.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Finally, I must ask you before we wrap up, what are some specific benefits or wisdom to be derived from undertaking this process? Because as we've discussed, and it's quite plainly obvious that it's not the easiest thing to do. So, apart from the fact that one will hopefully become more empathetic to the self, one will gain a better understanding emotionally, intellectually, etc. What are some of the other benefits? Could it be
If
building
I
of
have to answer this,
resilience?
if I have to answer this in only one sentence, because everything else is all available on the net, it's all there theoretically present. I will just say that you will start enjoying life like a child. You will live in the moment. Okay. You will enjoy every moment of your life and giving your best. It's a different ball game, a complete game changer, and you have to experience it firsthand to understand the benefits. Like just talking about confidence and resilience and relationships and career and this and that is all at the materialistic level, at the
Hmm.
outer level. But
True.
inside within you, you will be at peace with yourself.
Correct. Which is
The
actually quite a
void,
spiritual, like a spiritual ideal almost.
it's not even the spiritual aspect, because it's not that only spiritually we grow. We have to evolve at all levels. We think that if I'm growing spiritually, I don't need to grow materialistic, but it's
Ah,
all interlinked.
yes, yes.
Unfortunately, we think if I'm spiritual, I don't need material.
Really, but one informs the other. So yeah.
It's all interlinked. It's very strong. Things will just start flowing in your life. If you want to be in that flow, in that rhythm, you have to experience it firsthand. And chances are, a lot of times things will not be as per the checklist of the society, and
Of
you will
course.
be at peace with it. It won't bother you as much as it bothers someone who's not even who's having all those things, and they're like, "Oh, you like these things." You'll be like, "Okay, chilled out. That's my problem. That's not yours." You don't even want to go and explain yourself to those people. It's like that, you know.
True. I mean, but I completely see that point. These facets and realms that we inhabit, whether it's the spiritual stream, the materialistic stream, they are not mutually exclusive. They are not parallel lines. They are not compartments.
No, they're not.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, most of us put them into compartments.
Hmm.
I'm spiritually growing. I'm working on my third eye chakra.
Yeah.
So let my root chakra suffer.
Right. Right.
That's not how
Right.
it works.
Yeah. Yeah. That's just naive. Yes.
Everything needs to be in alignment for it to function appropriately. So there are a lot of misconceptions we have. So this helps us to not have a lot of expectations from others, giving your best without having focusing on the fruits, and you will see, you will actually experience that things start flowing. It's happening. You don't have to overdo anything. You don't have to overwork. You don't have to go out of your way. You don't have to impress people. And even if they're not impressed, it won't pinch you. It won't bother you. It's like, okay, cool.
You mentioned something that I have very strong views on, the checklist, because to me the greatest tragedy is that oftentimes the checklist is being made only by somebody else, but that's a whole other debate. But
Absolutely. And we still buy it.
yes, absolutely, we do, and we've sort of run after it anyway. It's been lovely talking to you, very insightful and so clear. I have, and I'm sure those who listen will really genuinely have a very lucid understanding of what self love means and why it is worth pursuing. So, thank you very, very much. I know you've been keeping terribly busy, but we really appreciate you making the time and all the best.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure, and thank you for having me.